Hi folks, hope you're okay today. It's good to be with you. My website's jasonburnspreacher.com, and I just want to share some thoughts about Islam, the religion of peace. Muslims say that Islam is a religion of peace. Now, I'm a Christian street preacher, and I've been reading my Quran that I have. I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian, but I'm just reading the Quran and studying it. Now, if you go to Hyde Park and watch videos at Hyde Park, a lot of the Muslim apologists are calling Jay Smith and some of the Christian apologists there as hate preachers because Jay Smith and other Christian apologists are pointing out that the Quran teaches about violence. So what you're finding in the West is Muslim apologists are using political correctness to hide behind and really don't want you to know the full nature of what the actual Quran teaches. You see, Jesus never taught about violence, so if Christians do violence, it's not because of Jesus' teaching. Jesus didn't teach violence. Jesus said, no greater love than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So Jesus laid down his life for us. He gave his life in love. So if anybody goes and does violence in the name of Jesus, they're not doing it in accordance to his true teaching. But that's not the same with Islam. In this Quran here, it has a chronology of the Prophet Muhammad, and in 624 there was the Battle of Badr. The pagan Meccans were defeated by Muslims, it says. There were many battles in early Islam. Now, let's take for granted that we say that every one of these battles was a just war. It's still true to say that Islam was formed in the midst of war. It was not a religion of peace. Muhammad went on battles. Jesus didn't go fighting with swords, but Muhammad went fighting with swords, killed people. There were early battles. If you compare his life and the early life of the Muslims and his companions compared to Jesus and his companions in the book of Acts, it's non-violent. The apostles are just preaching and getting thrown in prison, and they're preaching. They don't take up arms and kill anybody. Yet we see Muhammad and his followers taking up arms and killing people. Even if you say it was just, it's still true to say it's not a religion of peace because it was born in war. That faith was born in military combat. Now, when you read the Quran, if you read Surah 4, verse 74, it says, "Let those who would exchange their life for this world for the hereafter fight for the cause of God. Whoever fights for the cause of God, whether he is slain or victorious, to him we shall give a great reward." So this is the Quran is exalting war, whether it's a just war or not. It doesn't matter. He's exalting war. It's saying it is virtuous to war. It's virtuous to be in battle. You'll be blessed. If you turn to Surah 4, verse 84, "So fight for the cause of God. You are responsible only for yourself. Urge on the believers. God may fend off the power of those who deny the truth." Everywhere I read in the Quran here, it's fight, fight, fight. Everywhere. Now, I'm fully aware, as a Christian preacher and having a degree in theology and studying Islam at MA level, I'm fully aware that we have to get verses in context. So, if you want to get verses in context, you've got to study the Medina and the Meccan verses and all the rest of it. But even when you've done that, even when you've gone and done it all in context, the actual Quran gets more and more violent when you actually do it in its historical context. So it doesn't get the Muslim apologist off the hook. What I'm reading here, if we read, so we read Surah 4, verse 84, "So fight for the cause of God." Again, fight. So it's just exhortation after exhortation after exhortation to fight. So if you're a young Muslim and you're brought up with the Quran, which teaches you it's noble to fight, it's great to fight, you'll be rewarded if you fight. Even if we granted the Muslim apologist that it's all in a noble cause, you cannot escape the fact that it's a violent book. It's teaching about violence, about war. So it's not a book of peace. It is a combat manual. The Quran is a combat manual preparing people for war. Every word I read in this book, it's fight, fight, fight. Now, if you want the context, go on Answering Islam and look up jihad, and you'll find articles there where they'll actually break it down for you. Answering Islam. You go on there and you study their articles. You'll find that there are scholars there that will actually take the Quran and look at it in its historical context. So this is the reality that Muslims have to face, that the West has to face. You cannot hide it. You cannot call people who are saying that Islam is a religion of violence. You cannot call them people who are hate preachers. It's there in the Quran. Read it for yourself. Whenever people get angry about this and say it's Islamophobia, really it's people who are ignorant, who have not read the Quran. You need to read the Quran. You need to look at the Quran. Everywhere in this book it teaches violence. Even if you granted it's just violence, it still comes down to a combat manual to teaching people the importance of waging war. Simple as that. You've got to deal with it as a Western people and as Muslims. That is what the Quran teaches. I only give a few verses. There are over 100 verses in here about violence and war. It's a book, a combat manual preparing people for war. That's my impression as a street preacher reading it. Now, I'm fully aware we have to get things in context. So I grant the Muslim apologist everything that they say when I've just read those verses. Let's say they get it in historical context. I grant them everything that they say. It still comes down to glorifying violence. That's in the Quran, my friends.